Now, to summarize this, our keynote speaker, Marianne Thompson-Frenk, she has been to Rwanda, she has been to that place, she has witnessed that firsthand. She has seen the skulls, she has seen how people treated each other. She is the founder, president of Memnozine Foundation, you see that name, and now there is a Memnozine Institute, part of the Memnozine Foundation, and they're doing a tremendous job of bringing people, particularly the native and all the communities. They got the Interfaith Inquiry Center that puts out seminars, and Marianne has got a big heart, and I admire her for what she is doing, and I salute her and ask her to conclude the meeting with her keynote speech.
Thank you. You're going to have to bear with me because I didn't know I was doing the keynote speech until I got here. Mike's funny like that. When I was a little girl, I used to enjoy exploring Turtle Creek, and I have a whole big shoebox that's about filled up this high of arrowheads that I found and roaming around the creek and collecting it. And I remember as a little girl going to my parents and saying, "Where did these come from?" And that was the first time that I had any inclination, any understanding that there used to be people here. There was not an education necessarily in school saying there were people here and we killed everybody off. No, there was just me and my arrowheads and wondering what that really meant. But I never really understood what that meant until the day I was in Rwanda walking around and really had given up after about 5 minutes not being able to step on bones. And after I finally gave up, I looked down and saw something had gotten in my shoe, and it was a vertebrae about this big. And after I looked at that, I took it with me as I walked around this area, asking that spirit of that little child, whoever that had been, to be my guide. And I went into this room, and it was, all these bones, and it's something funny that happens to the human mind when you see that. You almost become detached, because it's just so much that it's overwhelming. And most everybody went with me in the same place where it was just a room full of bones and skulls, and finally we went into another place, and no one else wanted to go in there. But I felt like if there had been people that lived this hard, the least I could do is walk in there and witness the results of it. And I went into this place, and there were shoes, socks, clothes, teddy bears, rosary beads, and they were all soaked in blood. Every single thing was soaked in blood. And I made myself stand there, and the best way I can describe it is the air was thick with spirits, and I asked them, tell me what I need to do my part to never let this happen again. And it was very difficult. And there really aren't good words to be able to describe something like this, because it was still that fresh, that some things, that nothing had begun to rot. That's how fresh things were. So that gave me an idea of what genocide really is. And I prayed for a better understanding of what is the anger, what is the hate that leads to this. And careful what you pray for, because you might get an answer. I was suddenly hurried into a little house. Everyone said, get in here, get in here. And I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that the people that were Rwandan, our friend Charles Kilumba said, hurry, hurry. We get in this room. Anthony Chisholm was there, our friend Alan Keith, others, my husband. We're in this room. They lock the door. They're all squatting down. And I said, what's going on? I look out the window, and there's a man, and he's just walking, and he's proud. And he has on his head a skull of a child, and he has on his hip a big sword, is the best way I could describe it. And he's proud because there are notches on that sword, and the person whispering to me said, those are the number of people he killed. And this place that was so sacred, and all the lives that had died here, and even though it was a number of years after this has happened, he's walking through there strutting and proud. That is the face of genocide. And I wanted to understand, what is it that allows us to move from being an everyday person to being able to look at somebody and say, you are not a human being, you are less than. Because that's the challenge. That's what we're looking at. So when I went to the Rwandan Center at their museum, they had a big question up there. They said, when they said never again, did they not mean us?
Yeah.
And that's a question we have to ask ourselves every time we see a genocide, every time we see something that might be about to happen. And as I started researching to find out what are some of the things that have been said over the ages. Kill the cockroaches. That's what was said in Rwanda. Every day on the same radio station, there are only two, both radio stations, kill the cockroaches, kill the cockroaches. And they said it again and again and again until people believed in the lie that the other people were cockroaches. And the scary thing was there were only two people that perpetuated this entire lie. And they made people believe, the masses believe this as well. That's how terrifying propaganda can be. Another quote, the only good Indian is a dead Indian. That was something that was said throughout the United States. And if you Google it, you will find it repeated and said in paper after paper after paper during the genocide of the Americas, because people kept saying it again and again. And the idea was, say it again, and people will believe it. You know, Adolf Hitler actually said, if you say a lie a number of times, keep repeating a lie, people will believe it. He actually sent somebody, if you ever Google this, I researched it, he sent someone here to study what our country did to the American Indians in order to plan the Holocaust. He used our country's extermination of a people as his example. Another quote, the filth of the alien and the witch must be exterminated to preserve the purity of the human race, lest we degenerate into abomination. A lot of my American Indian friends have asked me, how could they do this to us? And my answer is only, whatever they did to you, they did to themselves. 4 million women were burned at the stake. That's only the number of those burned at the stake in Europe, because they professed a religion that was not at the time the Christian religion. So, you know, what the pattern that we keep seeing when we see this is, how do we convince the other person that the person that is not like us is less than? There's several different things that they've come up with. One's classification, defining us and them. That's the first step. If you are different than me, how can I find some connection with you? If you're powerful, how do I find some connection with you? And then how do I find something that you and I share that they don't share? Because that's what I'll use to get you to hate them. That's the first step people do. Symbolization, forcing groups to wear symbols. In every instance of a genocide, the other group has had to do something. Sometimes they, the armbands that the people over in the Holocaust did. In other places, they take advantage of what they've already done. I'm on the board of the New York Interfaith Center, and as soon as 9/11 was done, there are many, many situations where Sikhs were set on fire because they had turbans. So sometimes it's not that it's enforced to put a symbol on. They say, what's something that already stands out? Let me check that out and use that. Next one is dehumanization. One group denies the humanity of another. When they looked at what was going on with the Native Americans, they said they are savages, they're barbarians, they don't know better. When they looked at the Jews, they said they are rats. Usually what happens is they say they're unclean in some way or another. Organization. The society actually organizes its entire social construct to start putting down that other group of people, to start trying to wait them out, see how you can identify them. Polarization. Moderates are eliminated. If you're in a society and you start noticing that moderates are being pushed one way or another, and moderates are being told, don't side with them, you gotta be one of us, you gotta choose which side. That's one of those things that stands out. Preparation. Victims are separated from the rest of society. In every instance, whether it was the Trail of Tears, or whether in the Holocaust when people were removed, or whether it was in Rwanda where the Hutu and Tutsis forcibly had separate quarters, they physically moved them somewhere else. Extermination, the mass killing. Well, a lot of people's extermination seems to come out of nowhere, and they say, how did this happen? All those steps led up to it, and most of us are silent and don't even realize what's happening. For example, right now in Uganda, they had the Kill the Gays bill. They tried to amend that and make it a little more palatable, so they said the anti-homosexuality bill. What that means is that anyone that is gay has to wear something that identifies themselves and turn them in for life imprisonment. If you do not do that, you will be killed. If you know someone that's gay or you suspect might be gay and you don't do it, you also have to turn yourself in. They're kind of at that level right now. So if you watch in the next coming years, if nothing changes, you can pretty much predict what's sadly going to happen there. The next one, denial. Perpetrators attempt to hide evidence of genocide and blame the victims. So we got to find out some way. How did they bring it on themselves? Oh, well, American Indians brought it on themselves because they just didn't know how to work in our society. They just didn't use the land the way we did. So we have to help them. We have to empower them. We're doing this for them. You have to find some way to turn it around and make it look like you're doing it for their own good. Hate propaganda. In the past, it was just the radio, TV. Now it's on the internet. And there's some very terrifying things out there. Unquestioning loyalty. And that is one of the scariest, because there is a lie in every one of these instances that to be a patriot, you do not question authority. Our forefathers of our country had a different philosophy. If you really listen or read their writings, they said, to be loyal, to be a patriot, you must always question. You must always hold your government and your leaders accountable. That is how you make the difference. You must always say why. As every instance that one of these things has happened, other people did not ask why. Why is that person less than me? Other people did not ask, how come I should follow this way, this path? Other people did not say, why should I think that person is less than me? Right now, today, we use a bad word, for example, with gay people, the word fag. That word actually comes from meaning the wood that set a fire that you're going to put somebody in. So when people set them on fire, each one of those logs was called a fag. When we start allowing ourselves to become immune to feeling what that history is, to knowing what that history is, Indian giver, what that meant was the person that created, it was kind of our first biological warfare. The person that took someone with smallpox, wrapped him in a blanket, took that blanket, gave it to somebody else, and killed him that way. These words have become part of our language, part of our culture, and we do not take the time to even know what that means. But within it is a wealth of history. And it's only by understanding that history that we respect those who went before us. Every one of us here has had a genocide in our past, and every one of us here has managed to be here because somebody along the way stood up, hit someone, helped someone escape. And that allows us to be in a position today where when we say never again, we're not just helping the person over there, we're honoring the person that helped us be alive today. So right now is a time in our history as a people that we have to come together and decide, not just never again, but I will take that responsibility actively. I will make sure that I will do what I can to speak for someone that cannot speak for themselves. And many societies are at different parts of those stages. Ricardo today was very brave. In his own country, he can be arrested for praying at his place of worship. People are fighting so many fights throughout the world. But if we in this country take on our shoulders the bear of the responsibility that we are the ones who can use our freedom to not just speak for ourselves, but for our brothers and sisters around the world, then we are making a difference. Thank you.